Hello and welcome to the Music Survival Guide, the independent musician's guide on how to survive in the music industry. My name's Phil, a mixing engineer. Hope you're doing wonderfully well out there in podcast land. We are now into October and the year is very much flying by, isn't it? Before you know it, it'll be January again and the whole madness will commence again. But let's keep it positive, I guess. Let's not get all negative about the passage of time. This week, I wanted to talk about being a tight band live, or a tight live band. It's probably the better way to put it. And why it matters. So I've been to gigs where there've been bands who've been like razor sharp, really tight, and it's just been like, wow, where, you know, it's mental, it's really kind of cool, it's amazing, it's cohesive. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I've also been to gigs, sometimes it's the same gig with different bands, where the band just haven't quite been there, haven't quite been kind of tight, and I really notice it, and it really comes across in a negative way. So I wanted to talk about tightness, why it matters, what does it mean? Let's talk about all that kind of thing. So I guess first things first, what does tight mean in this kind of band context? I think it means you've got to have a good sense of rhythm, and that is every band member has to have a good sense of rhythm of the song, a flow of the song. You've got to have a good idea of the cohesion of the track and plan that. I'll talk about more of that about that in a minute. You've got to work out your transitions and your kind of dynamics of the song to make sure everyone is serving the purpose of the song in that particular moment. If you're not thinking about these things, be that actively or, you know, passively, because you might just happen to be good at these kinds of things kind of without thinking. If you're not thinking about these things, then I suggest you need to, because it's worth spending time to make sure your songs come across in the right way. It's really worth thinking about this. And why? Because an audience feel a tight band. You know, music is very much, you can intellectualize it, but it's very much an emotion. It's very much a feeling. I don't know, it depends on what your music is and what you want to do with the audience, but do your audience want to dance to your music? Then you definitely need to be tight and have the right feel. Do you want your audience to go crazy and mosh? Then you still need the right feel. You still need to have that kind of tightness and cohesiveness, because if you're messy, people aren't going to quite know what's going on. But if you're tight, then it's really going to come across. The thing about a live context, which a lot of people don't think about, is it's very different to a recorded context. In recordings, you can take your time to perfect every element of the track. You can take your time to make sure that everything kind of sonically fits together. Whereas live, you know, you set up your gear, you have, if you're lucky, you might have a sound check, a proper sound check, you might not. And then you've got to go, and you've got to trust the sound engineer. And the thing is, live speakers just kind of mush everything together a bit more than a recording. So you need to bear that in mind. You need to bear in mind that some of the details of what you're doing might get lost, and that's just the way it goes. But if you're tight and if you have that feeling, people are going to go with it anyway, and that's really, really important. So, I mean, how do you stay in sync? How do you kind of work together as a band? You need to have things like eye contact and anticipate what every other band member is going to do, or important band members to you are going to do. So if you're like the drummer, then what's the bassist going to do? What's the rhythm guitar going to do? And you need to listen. I think the biggest problem, there's a few problems, but the biggest reason why people don't necessarily have the tightness that they might want is they're not listening to what the other band members are doing. And sometimes, you know, you'll get into recordings and you'll go, oh, that's what you're playing. I didn't quite realise that. I think maybe that's why three-piece bands tend to be tighter, because there's less of you and there's less to focus on. Work out what the other band members are doing and work out how you can complement that. Often in a song, it's about how you can complement what other people are doing and work together towards the cohesive goal, rather than how can I come across as an awesome musician. That's not the way to serve the song. That's not the way to bring out the best in your band. I think if you are sloppy, then the emotions of your song aren't going to come through, and the sonics of your song definitely aren't going to come through. There's been a few bands, I'm not going to name any names, certainly not, where I've kind of got through the set and I've kind of gone, yeah, that was not great, and I felt like I was sort of enduring it so I could get to the bands I wanted to see. And you don't want to be like that. You don't want to have that reaction. So make sure you spend time thinking and actively working on how you can be tight. I mean, the reasons why it matters, aside from like sonics and emotions, is energy translates. Here's a thing. Here's a quote for you. Here's my cheesy quote for the day. Energy translates when it's in sync. When a band is really working together and everything's kind of pushing in the right direction. For example, basic idea, the kick drum and the bass guitar are really locked in, certainly to heavier music. The energy translates when you're in sync, and when you're out of sync, when it's kind of out of phase with each other, then it's not going to translate, and the message of what you're going to do, what you want to do, and the energy of what you want to do is not going to come across. It is more immersive and memorable if it's in sync. I honestly think that. I can remember the painful bands to watch, but I can't really remember what their music was like. Whereas I still remember years later some gigs I've been to of some quite small bands where it was just, they were on fire, the energy was there, they were in sync, it was wonderful. I really remember those gigs, and that is important to remember. It will also, of course, get you a good reputation as a quality and reliable live band. You know, you come across that way as engaging but really tight and stuff like that, then you will get a good reputation in that regard. There's many other ways to throw away a reputation, so do be careful, but it's really important to have a good reputation, so bear that in mind. Finally, most importantly, how do you do this? I think you need to have focused rehearsals. You need to, when you've got a set, you need to make sure that your rehearsal isn't just kind of aimlessly going through songs, but it's going, right, we've got a 35-minute set coming up. We need to do this twice in the rehearsal. We need to have worked out everything in that regard. And that means you really know the kind of transitions between the songs. You really know how everyone's going to be and what everyone's going to do, and how the kind of flow of the set works as well. That's really, really important. Make sure when you are on your own as a musician, you are practicing to a metronome. Make sure you're doing that. Agree the tempo of the song as a band, and make sure everyone, when they rehearse that particular song separately, when they rehearse it, make sure they do it to a metronome. Now, if you're using backing tracks, you're going to need to rehearse to a metronome as well, as I'm sure you well know. But if you're not, and you're just kind of using what instruments you have in the band, make sure you have agreed a standard tempo and worked that. That will work wonders if you all pull your weight and if you all do that properly. Another one, this might be painful for some people, recording your rehearsals. It doesn't have to be a qualified recording. Just do it on a phone, on, whatever device you have available. That will work. You will get the vibe of what you are coming across like. And it won't sound, if you're just using a phone, whatever, it won't sound 100% the kind of top quality. And maybe that will somewhat reflect what a speaker does in terms of mushing all the sound together. So that will really tell you how you come across, and it will really show you the deficiencies in what you're doing, where you need to spend more time rehearsing certain songs or more time kind of tightening up certain bits of the band, whatever that may be. Finally, as I've said before, it's all about listening. Listen to what the other band members are doing and work together. Work cohesively as a team, not as an individual musician, to help the song, help the emotion, help the feeling of that song move forward. There you go. Boom. So thank you for listening to another episode of the Music Survival Guide. If you thought it was helpful, please do share it with any friends and bandmates to start a discussion about this whole topic of tightness and things like that. If you have a chance, please do write a review wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps others discover the podcast through the algorithm, of course, the magical, mysterious algorithm. Finally, if you're thinking of recording or mixing, then please do drop me a message on the links in the podcast description below. We can have a chat about it, and I will see you next time.